expert, I've been told, in venom and small mammals and how that relates to the ecosystem. So Dr. Rulon Clark is going to join us tonight. Thank you very much. And then we also have Chris Visser, who is a herpetologist from Nebraska as well. Awesome. So we're going to get started. We're going to hand it over to them.
Okay. They want to hear from them.
They do. Yeah.
Us, so.
Okay. I first want to say that we're on campus, so we have our mask on, but the three of us have had all our shots, and I've had my third booster, and so has Rulon. So with no students here, we're allowed to take our mask off, but we're still following UNL protocol.
That's too bad. I really like the snake on your mask, Dennis. That was a nice touch.
Oh, yeah, I actually have three. I have a colubrid, a viper, and a bowen mask.
We need to get that.
That's like two more than what the snake ones that I have.
Right.
That's great.
For all different occasions.
This one's a viper, right?
Yeah, no, this is a colubrid.
Okay, they can be venomous. We're good.
Okay, yeah.
All right. So like we kind of talked about when we start our Nature Nerd Nights, we want to know how you became venom nerds or herp nerds, whatever you want to
It's
call
all
them.
about nature nerds on this show.
Yeah,
we're all a different type of nature nerd.
Yes.
I'm like just about everyone.
Yeah.
You like snakes, right?
I'm also excited.
Right.
This. Yeah.
So yeah, how did what is your story? What's your origin story? How did each of you come into this field and become a nature nerd yourself in your field?
Well, since I'm the oldest by far, I started way
Not by
before.
that much.
Yeah, quite a bit. Were you in '76 when I was doing my undergrad?
Right, okay,
my
yeah.
first class in herpetology.
I was being born. It was very
Okay,
dramatic.
I rest my case. So I actually grew up on the East Coast where when I was a kid at 12 years old, I caught my first copperhead. We lived out in the country. I was always enthused about herpetofauna as a kid, even though my parents were not. And from there, I went to Iowa State, where I had my first courses in herpetology with the late Marilyn Bachman and other people. And actually, when I was there near the end of my stay at Iowa State, I was with several other really great herpetologists like Mike Lanu and some others. And so I've always been interested in herpetology. And then once I came to Nebraska, I started working for UNL, primarily in the extension end, and then shifted over in 2000 to teaching, which became 100% teaching thereafter. So I've been with the university for 30 years, and I'm everything about making a difference with herpetology. And students that have been through my herpetology class, like Amber and Monica, you're the greatest. Couldn't do it without such great students. And I'm going to leave it there.
You're just saying that because I said you're one of my favorite professors, but it's fair. I'll take it.
Well.
Same story as Dennis. Kid with understanding parents, childhood interest in animals. I think that's almost universal, right? Like there's this biophilia, and if it doesn't get beaten out of you, then you just like retain it.
Absolutely.
So, and I got lucky because one of my best friend's dad worked as a curator at the local natural history museum. So I knew from like an early age, when I was in like junior high school, I knew that that was an actual career path. I mean, most students who come to college don't realize you can be a herpetologist, or you can study animals and nature and ecology and evolution and stuff. So when I went to do my undergrad at Utah State, where I'm from, I just found the resident herpetologist, a guy named Butch Brody, and like glommed onto his lab and never really left that career path all the way through my PhD and to where I am now.
So did you catch your first copperhead at age 12 or 10?
That. Okay.
12 or 10. I want to
I
know.
didn't catch a venomous snake until I was doing like undergrad research.
Okay.
And we were in Arizona, in an area of this Sonoran Desert where sidewinders were sidewinder rattlesnakes were one of the most common animals of anything. Like they were just all over, and they were fascinating to me. Like you could follow their tracks in the sand. They make a really unique little trackway. You can find them; they'll just be sitting there coiled, just waiting, like a little tiny hand grenade, waiting for some small mammal to come close enough that they can explode out and bite it and pull it and eat it. And I found that process really fascinating. So I kind of came back to that for my own doctoral studies. And
oh, wow.
haven't really left that area conceptually since.
I love it.
So if you don't mind us asking then, if you're from San Diego State University, you grew up in Utah, what are you doing in Nebraska?
That was a really good
Like,
question. That's a good question.
There's something you're here to see Dennis or.
It is. Dennis is actually helping me out a ton because one of our projects in the lab right now is on prairie rattlesnakes.
Mm.
And we picked that one in particular because it's got this really wide geographic range, all the way up into Canada
Mhm.
and all the way south into Mexico. And we're interested in the way that climate change is affecting kind of the ecological balance between venomous snakes and the things that they eat, kangaroo rats in this case.
Mhm.
And we want to study that across a wide latitudinal gradient that covers kind of a range of environmental conditions, so we can forecast a little into the future what might happen as the nights get a lot warmer in the northern parts of the range than they are right now.
That's cool. We're
That's
gonna.
really
I'm
fascinating.
gonna have at least 17 questions about that research later. So just be
I just
prepared.
want to say one thing. Another connection is that a student that started with me from Lincoln is now completing his PhD in San Diego with Rulon.
Yep, Dylan
So-
Mogg.
Yeah, so Dylan Mogg is, a student connection, which also brought us together that way.
Herpetology education, the gift that keeps on giving, I guess.
Yes.
That's exciting.
Herpetology is a very small world too, so we all know each other, and there's exactly 1 degree of separation between everybody in the field. So.
Good to know.
I don't know if that's good or bad, but Chris, what about you? What's your story?
Well, so I started out studying fisheries and wildlife, hating snakes, and was almost done, and was still killing every garter snake that I found. And I had come across one of Nebraska's 3 species of snakes: the garter snake, the rattlesnake, and the bull snake.
Right, of
Yeah.
course.
I came across a snake that I was sure was a baby snake, and I was so excited. And I went to a wildlife club meeting, and Dennis was talking. When we got done, I had him identify the snake. He crushed my dreams. It was a baby racer. It was not a bull snake. And he must have sensed that I was sad. He said, "You want a bull snake?" And I said, "Sure." And he just reaches under the table and plops a pillowcase on the table
That sounds about
and
right.
said, "You should take my class." And that was that. And I went from focusing almost entirely on becoming a fisheries biologist to studying herpetology, and have not looked back. So again,
So you were a success story. You went from he's like what we want.
He's
like
like
the optimal outcome.
he's like
people
a-
who hate snakes to I'm
Yeah,
gonna become a
like in a
herpetologist.
nice way, Dennis is like a cult. Like he draws you in and
Right.
shows you all these cool shiny things.
If we can get
like,
if we
here
can
we are.
push nature though, I'm fine with it. That's one thing.
Yes.
I'll say.
Yes, all it
It's a
took was
good
a shady transaction with a cult leader, and I became a herpetologist.
Right.
Thanks for
Just
putting it
please
like
don't
that.
serve any like Kool-Aid or anything at your
Yep.
meetings, but besides that, we'll be okay. Okay. Well, we heard them say herpetologist a lot. So what is a herpetologist? What would
I mean, I think I know what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to hear the experts. Like, what do you guys do? What's a herpetologist?
Well, a herpetologist is a scientist. That's way cooler than all the other scientists. No, a herpetologist is a scientist that studies herpetofauna. So ology means to study of, and herps in Latin means to crawl. Herpetology or herpetofauna takes up several groups or classes of animals. That includes amphibians, turtles or chelonians, reptiles, which are snakes and lizards and tuatara. The tuatara is one from New Zealand, really cool one. And also crocodilians.
Mm. That's good. That was good and succinct. So we're gonna get into the topic of the night, which is
Poisonous snake.
poisonous snakes. Ted mentioned at the beginning, right?
We're
So we're talking about poisonous snakes tonight, right? Now, obviously, we see some cringing from our experts. What is the difference between venom and poisonous, and why, when we say, or how about this? Why, as a mother, when I read, then the poisonous snake went and had an adventure in my children's book to my son. Why do I have to sit there and constantly explain to my 4-year-old?
I
that that's
crossed it
incorrect?
out and wrote venomous in one of the
That's good.
reasons,
You're
but-
doing good work.
Yeah.
So so tell us about what that is. Why is it not a poisonous snake?
Why do you take this from Rulon?
Sure, yeah. Poisons are ingested. So if something is poisonous, it has defensive chemicals that are part of its body, and if you eat it, it tastes really bad. Venom is a toxin that's injected. So if you have, there's a variety of mechanisms that animals have to deliver toxins like into the bloodstream. Fangs, stingers, anything that, there's an amphibian that even has like sharpened ribs that protrude out of its body that can poke you through, so that would be a poisonous animal that can become venomous because it's injecting a part of the poison into the bloodstream of a predator or a prey animal.
Okay. Go ahead.
Oh,
I'm
So as
curious.
said in this book that just came out by Stephen.
Can you read the title of that?
Sure. It's Handbook of Venoms and Toxicants of Reptiles.
Looks like a light read. I'm going to put that on my list.
Yeah, and it's heavy price, $250.
Oh, that's.
But it's well worth it. The thing is that he points out that most of the time, especially in reptiles, venom is not a defense. Poison is a defense in nature. So poison is developed as a defensive mechanism.
Okay.
Venom is developed as a digestive mechanism. And for reptiles, he pretty much, an excellent article in this new book, how venomous snakes, virtually none of them developed as a defense in any way. They all were developed as a digestive function.
So venom is kind of a last resort.
Venom is like saliva that just went crazy, and now.
Yeah, you could. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. We'll go with that for you.
So can I ask a question? I heard the difference between venom and poison, and what I heard from you, I'm not allowed to ask a question, Chris. I see you shaking your head. I really like his contribution.
Yep,
it's good. So I heard a difference is how it's administered. So if you eat poison or if it touches your skin, that's poison, and it has to be injected to be venomous. But I'm curious about, if you had a venom and a poison in a vial, does it only come down to how it's in, given to the prey? Administered, thank you. Or is there something chemically, structurally different between the two? Does that make sense?
Yes, and I would say the answer is yes, because most poisons and venoms are very different in their molecular composition.
Okay.
But most venoms are very different in their molecular composition. And most poisons, even with amphibians, we have our what people call toads in Nebraska.
They call them toads in other places.
They're in Nurin. They're not. Toad is. Never mind. We're not talking about that today. It's another.
That's for another nature nerd night. Thank you.
Another nature nerd night. But their bufotoxin, the glands on the back of their head, that's a completely different chemical than the chemical in something like a rough-skinned newt. Both are very heavy toxicants that are poisons, but their composition is very different. And when you look at coral snakes and rattlesnakes, yes, there's some crossovers in that toxicant, but they are different.
Gotcha.
You'll notice that Dennis's book titles here have venomous and toxin in the title, both of them. It's because toxin is a more general term than venom or poison.
Interesting. Okay.
Both venom and poison are toxins. They're they're toxic. You could call them all toxic animals. And I think Brian actually his proposal for a phylogenetic class is Toxicophera.
Right.
But they're so within the toxic animals, you have different routes of administering that.
Gotcha. No, that's so helpful. That helps me understand it in a big picture way. I also think Britney Spears wrote a song about that too.
And we do have snakes that have both. Actually, one little tiny snake that's found right here in Lancaster County in Lincoln, the ringneck snake, Zygophus montatus, it's called a slender rear fang, and it has a very small, mild toxicant venom for subduing things like earthworms. And it can also subdue a baby garter snake. But because it has no defense, it's a tiny little snake, it has a distastefulness which can be considered
Oh.
poison for a bird that may eat it.
You know this?
So the tiny little ringneck, in the purest sense, is a venomous, poisonous snake.
That is a super cool fun fact.
Oh, sorry, Chris, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
It's funny.
It tastes bad. From personal experience, I think he speaks.
Yeah, they taste almost as bad as they smell.
So do you have a ringneck snakes in your diet then, or?
I mean, who's asking? What do you I didn't realize that was part of this.
It's funny that you asked that because Ted LaGrange had a great question. If you ingest venom, would it be harmful? I always talk to kids when I do this, I tell them, please don't do this, but you can actually drink snake venom, but you're taking that chance that it's not going to enter your bloodstream.
Like if you had an ulcer or something.
Yes,
like
or
if it
a cut
would
in your
enter-
mouth, or it would enter.
There's a risk.
Is that true, or am I telling kids wrong this whole time?
It's less deleterious going through your digestive system because it's analogous to which means like the same. It's
Yeah.
Venom has lysation and things for digestion, just like, but it still can cause problems. So yeah,
Wouldn't
don't do
suggest it.
Yeah.
yeah,
Don't drink a lot, but you can drink a little.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Now we gotta hear folks
All right.
from our
Yeah,
So
well,
experts.
experts.
my paired venoms are mainly like enzymes and peptides and stuff. So your digestive enzymes will actually break those down pretty easily.
Okay.
But not a lot of the animals that are poisonous that have like smaller, like neurologically active toxins. That's why if you eat them, it can pass directly into like your system without you
Interesting.
digesting them first.
Mhm.
Now, on the other end of that, believe it or not, most venomous snakes are not immune to their own venom. So if an accident occurs and they either bite each other or bite themselves, they will die. In fact, I've seen a western diamondback rattlesnake that was kept in a cage completely by itself. I left, came back about an hour and a half later, and there was blood all over the inside of the cage and one dead rattlesnake because she had gone crazy and bit herself a couple times and was done.
Wow.
So,
That's interesting.
Is that considered suicide?
maybe. And actually, since she was eating herself, does that make her venomous or poisonous? Or both?
Someone asked Chris, what would cause a snake to bite itself? Like it would have to know that it's not.
Low self-esteem, mostly.
Okay.
A lot of times, if they get parasites, they will do anything they can to try to get rid of that discomfort. So it starts out rubbing against rocks, and if an itch drives them crazy enough, just like people would cut their own foot off to get rid of poison ivy, sometimes a snake will just start nipping and biting at itself to get rid of that feeling, and sometimes it goes badly.
So
Of all the snakes I've kept, I only had one time a copperhead accidentally bite its tail, and it's because it was being tongued improperly while I was teaching a student, and it thought it was biting the tongs or a hand or something that was harming it, and it accidentally bit itself. It's hard to say, why that happens, but again, everybody and every animal reacts differently to toxicants. So I can be bit, and Rulon can be bit by the same snake,
And I'll be totally fine.
yeah, and Chris bit, and we all can react differently. So when someone says, well, which is the most poisonous? Well, we have what we call LD50, and that's a generic way to measure the actual toxins. And LD50 means lethal dose 50. That's the amount it takes to kill half the population of usually rats or rabbits. And so the worst one, or the most toxic one, is the hook-nosed sea snake off the coral reef of Australia. That's 0.001 megagram per kilogram. But no one gets bit by that. Hardly anybody. And then you have something like a mamba, which is 0.01, which is 10 times less. And people get bit by that, and that's pretty bad. Then you get something like our rattlesnakes, which are just 0.1, which is And so the higher the number, the less toxic. And then our Copperhead, it's a wimp. It's 11.0 negative. It's like a bad wasp bite, you know? And so, yeah.
When
Are
people
these-
ask what the
Dennis, are
most
these,
dangerous snake is, I just tell them it's the one that just bit you, because that's what
Yeah.
it boils down.
That's the most dangerous. That's the most venomous.
are these
So-
species you're mentioning? So we were gonna ask you, what are our venomous species in Nebraska? And if you wanna tell us really briefly about like each one in a nutshell.
Okay, I can handle that. So we have, out of our 29 species of snakes that we call native to Nebraska, only 4 are venomous.
Okay,
Those 4, there's 3 that are rattlesnakes. That would be the timber rattlesnake, the Massasauga rattlesnake. Both of these are threatened and tier 1 species in the state of Nebraska right now. That means the highest protection. They are primarily left only in a few areas in the southeast corner of the state. Then we have the Copperhead, which is doing well in Kansas and barely gets into Nebraska. A few dens in southern Gage County, southern, possibly Richardson County and Pawnee County, but mainly southern Gage County. And that's venomous, but doesn't have a rattle. That leaves one more venomous, and that's the prairie rattlesnake. And the prairie rattlesnake is, people say, fairly stable. I like to argue it's declining like there's no tomorrow. But if you draw a line approximately from Kearney, diagonal to the northeast corner of the state, say Ponca or South Sioux City, it is primarily found north and west of that line.
okay.
And that's the prairie rattlesnake. No, we do not, and probably never had, a diamondback, eastern or western, in the state of Nebraska.
I feel like you've had that question before or something.
But we
And
do.
no, we have not, and probably never have, and never will have, a cottonmouth or water moccasin in the state of Nebraska.
Gotcha.
The farthest north the cottonmouth has ever been certified by a herpetologist is the southernmost county in Kansas.
Awesome.
Well,
Well,
with climate change, it'll get wetter, it'll move up.
Come on, global warming.
You'll become the new Florida. It'll be like pythons and
No
alligators.
python.
Oh my
no
gosh,
alligators.
this is Dennis's nightmare.
yeah. Well, Rulon, you were talking a little bit about your research about climate change and how that's affecting your snake's prey. Do you want to talk a little bit more about your research and kind of talk about how venom involves that as well?
Well, sure. Yeah, that particular project, the only part that kind of involves venom is just that we're looking at the general kind of foraging ecology of the snake, the impact that the prairie rattlesnake can have on the small mammal communities that it preys on, and the entire foraging strategy of a rattlesnake and any pit viper. It all hinges on venom. Venom is like a linchpin of the entire process. So these animals are ambush hunters. Rattlesnake is not a fast animal, except for the strike. Like they are not pursuit predators. They can't like chase down mice and chipmunks and squirrels. They're very low energy specialists that rely on remaining hidden and cryptic and waiting for long periods of time, very patiently until a small mammal makes a mistake and just wanders close without realizing it, and then they can straighten their body very rapidly. That's what makes them fast. Is the strike.
That's the physics behind it.
The snake has to be coiled to do this, but if it's in the coil with its head and its neck kind of folded back, it just very rapidly straightens, and that pushes the head forward. They rotate the fangs out from the roof of the mouth in the half a second while they're pushing their head forward. Those long fangs stab into whatever it's targeting, if it's targeting it correctly. And then they squeeze the big venom glands on the side of the head. That's why pit vipers have that triangular head shape, is those big stacks of venom on the side. And they're trying to just flood as much venom into the animal as they can in the half second or so where they're going to be able to hold on to it. And then they let go. They almost always let go of a small mammal, because a small mammal with like teeth and claws is going to be freaking out and clawing and biting at the head of the snake. And a snake's head, everything that's important to the snake is kind of packed into the head. They don't have arms and legs. They're just like a muscular tube with like a head on the end.
True.
And so all the eyes and pits, the delicate parts are all right there. So they let go immediately. So they almost always pull away from what it is that they bit, especially if it's a small mammal. And they let the animal die. So the animal like stumbles off. It might go, I don't know, 10 feet, 20 feet, 30 feet. And until it succumbs to the venom. If it's a good bite by the snake, they've flooded enough venom into the animal that it's just going to overwhelm the systems basically, and the animal will die from. I mean, it's gross, but it's basically massive internal hemorrhaging. It's a bunch of like digestive enzymes and toxins.
We're here for the science. It's okay. It can be gross.
Yeah, I mean, it's a horrible way to die, I'm sure, because it's just being like kind of broken down from the inside out. It succumbs, and then the snake uses its extremely good chemosensory ability. Its tongue, vomer, nasal system, and they have a good sense of smell. It's like almost everything is duplicated in the sensory system of the snake. Like the tongue, vomer, nasal system is very good for picking up like large molecules, and their sense of smell is like ours. It's very good about picking up like airborne molecules.
Okay.
So together it can follow the very specific scent trail left by the animal that was bit, and then it'll find the carcass and ingest it. So that only works if the venom is effective. If the venom is not effective, it doesn't eat. It'll bite something, and that something will run away, and they'll never see it again.
Okay.
Just to add to that, rattlesnakes, they don't have the muscles to constrict. If a rattlesnake wrapped around the mouse will wiggle away and say bye-bye. So the venom is developed to secure prey because they can't constrict. The other thing is, if you look at the anatomy of a rattlesnake versus a bull snake or a rat snake, the heart is almost in the middle, which is very efficient for breathing, but means you can't constrict. So the heart is in a different position. It's way farther down. And lastly, you're wondering why doesn't this eat the snake? Well, the venom in the glands doesn't become reactive until, and this was just put out by Stephen, till it hits the temperature of a warm-blooded prey and the blood of a warm-blooded prey. So literally, the venom is not that effective. That's when they bite themselves, that usually don't die, they just get hurt. Unless that venom is in a warm-blooded prey.
Is it like a chemical reaction then?
Yeah.
Wow.
Literally, yeah. And so it's just amazing that how efficient this stuff is. It's just immaculate. I mean, it's.
Well, and
Like
speaking,
saying, because of the fact that if the snake bites and the venom isn't effective, it doesn't get to eat. That's another reason rattlesnakes and most vipers choose not to bite defensively, because venom is very expensive biologically to produce. And so if they waste that load on a bigger predator to try to deter it, something that they know they're not going to eat, it means that they may not have any venom when a prey item comes by later on, and all they're going to do is strike at the air and miss a meal. So
yeah, that's why there's so many myths about snake bite treatment. Because about half of
you're supposed to suck it out, right? You're supposed to like suck it out.
Yeah, see, exactly. That's why myths like that persist. Is because about half of the time, anything you do is going to work. Like if you get bit by a rattlesnake, you can do like a rain dance or
drink some rum.
Yeah. Maybe 30 to 50% of the time, you will not feel any effects from that bite. But it's because the snake didn't inject any venom, and you have no way of knowing that in advance. If it's going to inject venom at all, or how much it's going to inject.
And it's controversial, but it's limit towards the side that the snake cannot decide how much venom comes out.
Okay.
It's more arbitrary in hydraulics. Now, again, there's not a lot of robust data on either side. What I've been reading, it leans towards the fact that if they come down on a prey, they're likely venom to come out. If they're going like this to scare something, it's much less likely that venom will come out. I think it was Gerard in 2003 in his paper, when he did a survey, He said 60% of all rattlesnake bites on humans are dry bites. That means 60% of the bites, there is no venom.
Mhm.
Again, that's one study. So I think we would be remiss if we don't say this right now. If you do accidentally get bit, you don't suck on it, you don't put ice on it, you don't drink liquor.
Or shock yourself with the car
Just
battery.
keep-
That was one for
Just
a
keep
while.
herping and forget about it. That's the story.
You call 911 because time is tissue. You remain calm.
Can I get a t-shirt that says time is tissue?
Yeah. And you remain calm, and if you can, keep your body at your heart the
Yeah,
same.
remain calm. Good luck with that.
Keep your heart the same level as the bite, and get transported to a hospital.
Hopefully have a friend drive you, maybe.
Yeah. So the most important things is your car keys and your phone.
Yeah, here's my field snake bite.
Yeah,
treatment.
right there. That is it. And so never, ice makes it worse. And people say, why? Or sucking makes it worse, because you're talking about something that breaks down tissue. If they bit you here and there's venom and you kept it there, you can eat out this area. If you let it slowly move, it would just cause bruising all the way up the arm. Okay,
Yeah.
now you don't want to get
Like
to the
either of
heart.
those things, but like I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
That's just not the way like pharmacological like properties work. If something is injected, it binds to your tissues immediately. I mean, there's a reason you don't treat like a heroin overdose by like trying to suck the heroin back out of like the needle part. Like it doesn't, once it's injected in, it's in. Like it's not coming back out.
Right.
Oh man, this is really good, and I feel like are you learning new things?
Oh yeah.
Like
I was on edge when Rulon. Oh yeah.
One more thing about bites, and then we'll get off of bites on
No,
people.
it's okay. We love it. That's what we're here for.
Across the whole United States, and this was, I think, also in Gerard's paper, 70 to 75% of the people that get bit by rattlesnakes are not hunters or farmers or ranchers. They are people handling or going to kill the rattlesnake. Here, hold my beer while I kill this, Bubba.
Isn't a very
want it-
high percentage of like
Males.
white males
Young,
too, Dennis?
young ones.
Like
Yes,
young white
yes.
males. Okay.
I think the demographics are 35, it's 20 to 35-year-old males is a demographic for snake bites. So I'm way
Old
over.
enough to drink, basically.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So the whole thing is, if you don't think you're helping your family or yourself if you go towards it. A rattlesnake will never chase you. Okay, it's more afraid of you than you are of it. So if you see it, you go the other way.
Yeah.
That's the safest thing you can do for your family, because you being there, you haze that snake. It's going to leave. Yeah. Never go after it. That's the worst thing you can do, because you got a good chance of getting bit.
Yeah, I have people ask me all the time, like, if I'm hiking and I see a snake, like a rattlesnake, like on the trail, what should I do? It's like, you go around it. Like,
Yeah.
it's, it doesn't, there's no, it's pretty easy.
Yeah.
Like, the snake has an effective strike range of about that.
Right.
So, just give it a wide berth, enjoy the fact that you're seeing like an amazing animal in nature and in the environment that it lives in.
Right.
Take some pictures from a safe distance and go on your way.
I
Yeah.
will say we had a few comments in the audience really quick that I'll speak to this. Kathleen said she was actually bit. She was a venomized victim. Is that what you call it? That's interesting. In Fort Robinson, she did have to take a helicopter to Scottsbluff Hospital. Everything was done right. And my favorite part of this comment, she still likes snakes. So I appreciate that, Kathleen, and thanks for sharing that story.
Does she have any? If she got bit after 2002, chances are she had crowfab and probably doesn't even have a scar. Is that true, Kathleen?
We'll await her response in the chat here, Dennis.
Crowfab is one of our sponsors.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was like, I don't even know what this is.
Even though none of us have ever been envenomated, in the last 2 days, Rulon and I caught and processed 50 rattlesnakes.
And I heard that you like have something to show.
Maybe this is a good time. For
This
that.
might be
Let's
a good
do
time.
it. I don't know. Would the audience want to see an example, or
We've been talking about Venom all night. Like, let's be a real
Everybody back up. So this is the young of the year, Prairie Rattlesnake.
Wow.
You notice it only has a button. It can't rattle yet. They shed about 48 hours to a week after being born, live birth, and then they get their second segment, and they still can't hear anything. And so this is just one of the young of the year. They're born right now. This is the most wonderful time of the year. This is when prairie rattlesnakes are born.
Not Christmas.
That's
right
just
now.
So Dennis, you said it can't rattle yet. I'm sorry, I missed how long before
Nope,
it will
it can't.
be able
It doesn't
to.
have, it doesn't have any segments. All it has is a button.
How long before it can actually do the rattling?
Well, all snakes will rattle their tail. You won't hear anything. It won't get a segment until it sheds when it comes out of brumation or hibernation in the spring.
Okay.
So all these young of the year are kind of silent.
Each time they shed the skin, the basal segment adds to the end of the bottom of the rattle, and all the other segments move up along like the long bead. So an older snake will have many segments that'll be like pushed up on the rattle.
Rulon, you talked earlier about your kind of interest in venom and your research. Dennis and Chris, what are we looking for in Nebraska as far as venom, or what statistics do you like to have, or what research is being done, or do you do research?
Also, where are you guys coming to us from right now? It might be
Oh, this is from the UNL Herpetology Lab.
Sweet.
And this is my Hall of Fame. You can't see all these. They go around the whole building, but these are all my students who've done great work over the years.
We're not one of
In research and herpetology.
them. No.
But at least we're on a program with them.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
it counts.
Rulon, you said that this was a really nice lab. You said it was very unique, and it was, you said, larger than the one that you work in at San Diego State.
Dennis has built one of the biggest and most successful state herpetology programs that I know of, actually.
Wow.
The facility he has here that's dedicated to research and education and conservation is really unique. They don't, academics and universities and government agencies have a hard time devoting kind of the space and the resources needed to support something that has kind of a more kind of basic science, no direct application to humans other than conservation.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is mainly due to just Dennis's tenacity in securing support and fundraising and educating students. The program here, and Dennis also has kind of an outreach program for the entire state where people across the state can ask him questions and get his input on identifying animals, and he uses that as a tool to kind of educate them and help train people to maybe not think so poorly of venomous snakes and other herps. It's really an amazing facility. I mean, I hope that you're getting old, Dennis, so I hope the university will keep it going somehow. Like it's just, you've invested all these decades into building this. If anyone from University of Nebraska is listening, make sure that this institution lives for many generations in the future, because it's a really unique facility.
Before we go any further, there is no tax money in this. This is all private grants and user fees. So no taxpayers are paying for all this.
They should be.
No.
Yeah, they should be, but just want to make sure that.
And we were at the Legacy Conference today, and we had an education session, which our Fish and Wildlife Education Division, we presented a few things, and one of the big themes that we were speaking to is how important it is to connect with people of Nebraska, in that almost that connection and that emotional connection, and how that is a conservation strategy. Because look, Dennis, I know that legacy that you have of not only the research that you're involved in, but how you share your passion with others. It's just had such an amazing ripple effect across the state. And I think it's gone so far to help turn the tide on the conversation of snakes are a part of the ecosystem and they're not to be hated and all these things. So I think that's just incredible, the work that you've done on that. And Rulon, it's really cool you've noticed that as well.
Well, to answer your question, and I think Chris would probably agree with this, So I virtually do no venom research at this lab. I may take a sample of venom when we bring some snakes in, just one sample to do some genomics or analysis, but we just take one sample. But most of what the students do here and what I oversee is conservation of the native herpetofauna.
Okay.
But we do a real lot on just the status. I mean, between Chris and I and Dan Fogel, there's no one to track everything, and there's no one doing it. If they have expertise to try to see where our herpetofauna is, our venomous snakes, you know, what is their conservation? What are their needs? You know, we sit down with Nebraska Game Parks Commission and the Natural Legacy Program to decide, yes, this needs to be tier 1. Yes, this needs to be highest protection. And you know, what we see across the state, we see a lot of great people, private landowners that we went to see, the Osborns and others, that are protecting these animals. But then we go to other places and they're just being, for no reason, 100%, you know, somewhat prosecuted.
It's a bit inconsistent probably because it's so much privately owned, so it's like working.
Right, yes,
right.
Yeah. But there's nothing wrong with privately owned.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
Just a matter of education.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, the public, this, you know, and it's just, you know, I kind of almost think it's part, I try to get that out, but it's hard to change attitude. But I sometimes take it on myself is, why are there so many people that still don't realize that snakes don't kill people, people kill snakes? You know, this has all the instances of rattlesnakes since the 1850s. And, you know, I could go to any county and look at it. And from 1920 on, in the state of Nebraska, there's been no one who's gone to a hospital, remember that, who's gone to a hospital, has died or even has lost a finger to a local venomous snake bite. Okay, that means in Nebraska. If you fly in a fer-de-lance from South America and it bites you, that's your own fault. Amber knows, I mean, Monica knows exactly what I'm talking about.
I'm sorry, I try to hide my face, but I can't. Okay. This was not me. I just want everyone to know that. It was not me.
No, it isn't.
Dennis is just joshing with you.
That's just a totally random example that he picked out of thin air.
I know, right? Yeah. So we're kind of going to wrap up a little bit here and then get to our lightning round. But one question that we want to make sure we ask is, we've talked a lot about interesting things tonight, but let's say that you three all had the attention of every single person in the entire world for 5 minutes. What is something that you would want them to know about venom, or about snakes, or about anything that we've really talked about tonight? What's your soapbox message that you would like to?
Snake soapbox.
Snake
They have
soapbox,
it.
yeah. That's a band name. I call it.
That needs to be.
But
banned,
Parks and Rec,
right?
oh my God, yeah.
Go ahead, go first, Chris.
So if I had that opportunity, what I would say is that in the United States, there are about 8,000 venomous snake bites that are reported every year. They kill about 6 people, which is slightly less than 50% of the number of people that are killed by vending machine accidents.
Okay.
That's actually a CDC statistic. But rattlesnakes are killed by the tens of thousands all over the country for their skin, or because people don't like them, or because they're seen to be an enemy to agriculture, or any number of other stupid reasons. But copperheads, cottonmouths, certain species of rattlesnakes are all on the cutting edge right now of diabetes drug research,
Oh, wow.
of being able to stop conditions like Parkinson's, and there's some MS research. So the
Wow.
potential for thousands of rattlesnakes to save millions of lives, or at least improve millions of lives of humans, is something that can't be overstated. And it really is a resource that once it's gone, and the world will be a worse off place for it.
That was a perfect snake soapbox. You
got
you
goosebumps.
set the tone.
Yeah.
Yeah, and mine is kind of long to say, but I'm less anthropogenic than Chris.
That's fair. We all have
I know,
different
That
values.
means he doesn't like people.
Right. So every species, no matter what it is, plant, insect, animal, is part of our biodiversity.
Mhm.
which is necessary for this whole thing to work. In the words of Aldo Leopold, the height of ignorance is any person who says about any plant or animal, what good is it? If it's here, it's part of the system, it has great value. Only the ignorant would not think that. Aldo Leopold, 1940.
For sure.
Yes, drop the mic, Dennis. Good
Mhm.
job.
What's that?
That was a mic drop moment. That was a good snake so far. And now it's all you.
Off of that, Rulon.
Yeah.
I mean, I could totally just echo that. I guess when it comes to rattlesnakes in particular, I'd have to say, so that they fall into this class of animals that are dangerous to people. I mean, I don't think we want to avoid the fact that this is an animal that can do great medical harm. It's a predator, and it's one that does possess some risk, some danger to people. And I think, I hope people can come to terms with that the same way that I think our culture has kind of been able to with animals like wolves and cougars, maybe to a lesser extent sharks. There's something about predators that's both kind of fascinating and fearful to people, the animals that pose risk. But I would argue that that's also an element of wilderness. So people are starting to realize the value of truly wild places as we lose them. And part of a truly wild place, a functioning ecosystem, is that it has all of the elements of a functioning ecosystem, which means predators, animals that I think we should always be a little uncomfortable around. I wouldn't want to get too comfortable around a rattlesnake any more than I want to get too comfortable around a grizzly bear. But that doesn't mean that the attitude is to kill them off. I think we've moved beyond that, hopefully. I want us culturally to have moved beyond that so that we can accept these animals and the small but real risk they pose to humans as a part of a wilderness area and a wilderness experience. And when we encounter them, appreciate them that way.
That's good.
Maybe we'll
Perfect.
get there.
Yeah. That was really good. I like that.
Those
snake
were all
soap.
awesome
Can we have like
answers.
a snake soapbox, but for every program?
Yeah.
Because I really like that. Okay, that was really good. All right, so are you all ready for our lightning round? And I know we have only 8 minutes left, but we have so many phenomenal questions from our participants. We wanted to just get through them if possible. We have probably like 10 or so if we can get through them. So remember with this one, just if you can answer it as quickly as you can. And also I did see a few questions in the chat too that I want to make sure we don't ignore. And I will say before we even start this, if anyone has even any more additional questions that we don't get to tonight, this is like a really good one. This is probably the most questions.
And I still have so many questions.
I know, like I'm stopping myself.
I know.
From like, but we will send you an email tomorrow. We're gonna ask for an evaluation of the program, but we're also gonna send you a whole list of resources that maybe they mentioned tonight and some places that you can go and look and read more on your own if this sparked your curiosity about snakes and venom. So.
And I want to say, if we don't get to your question and you want me to answer it later on, I'd be happy to. Each question is only a $100 donation to the lab, and you will get a complete answer.
I like it.
Okay.
He's good at this.
He is. He's done this before.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Are you ready for lightning round?
Sure. Bring it on.
All right. You want to start?
All right. So this is a question. All are poisonous snakes found in all of Nebraska. Where are they most heavily located? And we talked about venomous. So insert venomous for poisonous.
So maybe you spoke about the 4 that we have, but where's the?
Is there like a heavily concentrated area of them?
Heavily concentrated area of any venomous snake would be the Prairie Rattlesnake out west, and they seem to be doing the best in the Panhandle in the southwest corner, and they're not doing too bad in the Sandhills as well.
Some parts.
Some parts of the Sandhills, yeah.
Where people haven't poisoned prairie dogs out.
Yeah.
Save the prairie dogs.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, what does venom look like on a cellular or molecular level? We spoke a little bit about it And I don't know, maybe you need like a graph for that, but what could you speak to that?
It's different depending on what snake you're talking about, but for rattlesnakes and most other pit vipers, it's a cocktail of enzymes and proteins and like smaller peptides, but mainly large molecule, large like digestive type enzymes.
Okay.
It's translucent yellow.
There's a picture of it, like dripping off that thing.
It looks like beer.
Oh, okay. All
Awesome.
right.
I like beer. Okay.
That's perfect.
What is the ratio of venomous to non-venomous snakes, maybe in Nebraska or even in the world?
That was a good question. That came from Jace.
That was a shout out. I know Cassidy was on tonight. So Jace, if you're listening,
that was a
So
good question.
divide 4 into 29.
you might have stumped him, Jace.
Divide 4 into 29.
Yeah, if you're talking about species, like
Well, his question actually did say world, so that's more of like a, you don't have to have the
Oh,
exact number,
There's
but
a lot less venomous than there is non-venomous.
okay,
And even number-wise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
sounds good. Let's see, oh, this is a good one. Are there different types of snake venoms? Now, I know that you mentioned, we talk a little bit about the molecular level, but I have heard that before. There's like a hemotoxin and a neurotoxin, like is that,
Yeah.
is that something, if you could break it down into categories, or is
Yeah,
it?
really quickly, like most vipers have hemotoxic or enzymatic based venoms that are these complex cocktails.
Okay,
A few, like the Mojave rattlesnake, have neurotoxic venoms. They're just simpler, potent, like neurotoxins. Most cobras and coral snakes have that type of venom, the neurotoxic type, instead of the hemotoxic type.
And the most fascinating part that I was just reading,
I was just gonna
that these pieces of the venom, these different molecules, they're made all over the body. Some are made in the gonads, some are made in the brain, some are made in the lymph nodes. They're all over the body. So they're not just from the saliva gland. These are made all over and then put into the bloodstream and accumulated in that saliva gland. It's just amazing where
That is
some of these
fascinating.
components are made.
And that made me think, Dennis, what you had mentioned of it's like this interesting puzzle piece where it doesn't activate until it gets into warm blood.
Yeah.
Is that hemotoxin, whereas like as a neurotoxin not activate until it gets to whatever that, you know what I'm saying? Is it kind of work like that, or?
Neurotoxins are they're simpler and so they're not, enzymes can be like heat activated or
Okay.
more effective at like higher temperatures.
So
The
they're less
neurotoxins are-
specialized or something.
Yeah.
Are they more primitive
Interesting.
types of venom then,
that's a good
or
question.
considered primitive, or?
I
Do they
wouldn't
have
know
more
because I think they're just they're more that they just have phylogenetic inertia. So this family of snakes have evolved a very different type of venom than the elapid family or the colubrid snakes.
So-
Colubrid elapid
Most of
snakes
that's
are
gonna be
further.
diet and habitat.
Yeah, and it's more coevolution than it is linear.
And I also want to say that
You
phylogenetic
can't
inertia.
say that, the hemotoxins became the neurotoxin.
I
It's
see.
It's like this.
Okay, I want to say phylogenetic inertia is also another good band name. I'm just saying, might be a little bit better.
Yeah.
I call that one. Okay, go ahead.
So someone asked, are there any restrictions on owning venomous snakes in Nebraska?
Yes, you
Okay.
don't realize it. One, if it's the Massasauga or timber rattler, because I get this so much, there's no bag limit on those. They're protected by Nebraska Game and Parks Commission. You cannot pick up a Massasauga or a timber rattlesnake in the state of Nebraska. It's a tier 1 species. You need a permit. Now, what people don't realize that there is a law, and it's under the state health department law. It says you cannot possess a venomous animal, and snakes are written right in the parentheses, unless you have a permit, a license from the state. Okay, now that's overtaken if the city has a different thing. In Lincoln and Omaha, override that, and I think Grand Island. But for the rest of the state, even if you're in Parks, Nebraska, in the middle of nowhere, according to the state health department, you have to have a permit. Now, this permit is hinged on $1 million of insurance.
Of course.
If you can show $1 million of insurance that have the rattlesnakes or venomous snakes on the rider, they'll give you the permit probably.
Okay. That leads into
Oh.
another similar one. You could speak to this maybe. Someone asked, is there a native or not endangered snake that makes a good pet? And that's a good question, and we get that a lot. And so maybe you can answer it, but speak to, how would you go about that? Should we, what does that look like, if you can?
Well, I think the best snake for a young person, I think the best snake for a young person, and we were just shaking our heads, is not these foreign things that are inbred, but garter snakes. Do you know in Germany, they pay up to $600 for a garter snake as a pet because they don't have them? Garter snakes, they're live birth. They become habituated to captivity. They eat worms and insects. They're easy to feed. Yeah, they may smell a little, but so do I. You get around
Fair
that.
point.
So if you're going to, I mean, and they're wonderful, and they have wonderful behavior. So if you're a young person and you want to have a snake, and you can, and according to Nebraska Game and Parks regulations, any one person can have 10 of them in the state of Nebraska, and hold 10 of them.
Collect the whole set.
Is this a good one? Oh, I think we should
Do you have any other?
All right, well, I think we're gonna have to wrap up because I know it's 8 o'clock. But we just wanted to say thank you guys again for helping us out tonight. We had really good questions. We had a lot of good audience
Fantastic.
participation. So
Mhm.
make sure that everyone joins us next time. November 16th will be our last one. of the
Until next year.
Until next year,
Yep.
yes.
Mhm.
But November 16th, we're going to be talking about field flops and failures in the field. So we're going to have some interesting guests on and good stories as well. I also just want to make a mention that October, I don't know if you guys know this, October is Nebraska Reptile Month. So we got a proclamation from Pete Ricketts, the governor, stating that this is Nebraska Reptile Month. So this is why we're hosting these events. So celebrating reptiles and bringing awareness to our native species that we have here. So,
And also just a huge thank you. Y'all were fantastic tonight. We had a lot of fun and we learned a lot like we always do. There's always more to learn when you're curious and you're excited about nature. And especially to you, Rulon, thank you so much for coming out tonight. I know you came all the way from California just for our program, right?
It was a lot of fun.
Thank you all.
yeah, thank
Have
you,
a good night.
everyone. Have a great night.
All right, bye.